Welcome to my tutorial on how I make my strawberry pattern. My name is Sarah Marie and this is Sarah Marie's Pottery. To get started, you'll need a piece of pottery to paint on. You can do this at leather hard, bone dry, or even bisqueware. You'll want to have some underglazes. I'm using Mako Fundamentals, and I also have a palette to put the paints in. You'll also want a spray bottle to rehydrate your paints if they get dry. I'm using Harvest Gold. I'm also using Flame Red, China White, and Leaf Green. You'll also want a paintbrush. I'm using this medium small one. You'll want a carving tool. I have these little ballpoint stylus. I'm using the smaller end today. And if you don't have that, you can also use a needle tool. I also have a turntable. This isn't necessary. I don't really use it throughout this process showing you, but it can come in handy. And I also have a bucket of water to carve over. Getting started, I'm going to be painting the leaves of the strawberry. And I do a star pattern and I work slowly so that I don't mess up. It definitely can be an organic shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. I start with a thin layer to just get my base down, and then I'll go back in with a thicker layer. And then I will stagger the leaves for the next strawberry, and then I'll continue on. You'll want to make sure you leave enough room for the strawberry to go in. And I will fast forward the rest of the process. Alright, now it's time for the strawberries. I like to make sure I leave enough room between each color for when I'm carving later. It makes it easier, especially on bone dry stoneware. It's not as important when it's leather hard. And I'm just kind of outlining the shape, and then I will again make a thin layer of the shape I want. It's just a upside down triangle. I like to make the lines kind of meet up above the two middle leaflets. And then after I get my little shape, I will go in with a thicker layer of glaze. Trying to be extra careful with this red as it can stain the stoneware, and you don't really want to wipe away glaze on greenware as it can take away the clay with it. You can fix it, it's just not very fun and it can make the surface rough. All right, and then we'll speed through the process. Now we'll be adding the blossoms, and I just add the center of the yellow. I try to get as much of the glaze at the tip of the brush instead of the whole brush, so I can make these little perfect dots. And I just do generally just one thick dot, but I'll go over if it needs more. All right, now for the petals, we're going to be using the white. And I like to make a sort of a triangle shape with the two top and then the one on the bottom, and then I go on to the two side ones, and it kind of helps me map it out a little bit better than if I was to just go all the way around with the petals. And you'll again want to leave space around, not too much, but just enough so that you can carve out. Alright, next we'll be working on the leaves. Unfortunately, this gets cut out, so I'll have to come back and show you, but I start down to the tip and kind of like feather my way down, alternating sides. And it should cut out before I can finish this one. But there's two different type of leaves that I do. All right, as you can see, it did cut out, but again, you'll want to start at the tip, trying to making the point of your brush pointy, and you alternate, working your way down, and then for the half leaf, I kind of start like in the middle, and then I feather my way up, bringing it down. Alright, for this part you will want a mask. I'm using a P100 mask. This is especially important if you're carving on bone dry. Alright, so we're just going to outline everything. I do recommend doing this on leather hard instead of bone dry. It's a little easier. You're more likely to, push too much and make the line too deep, but it's definitely safer to do it on leather hard. But if you're wearing a mask, you should be fine. And I'm just dusting it into the bucket between each carving. But this is pretty simple. You just want to outline everything. And then I'll be carving in the strawberry seeds. If you were going to do this on bisqueware, I would recommend just leaving either space in between the colors, so like the leaves and the strawberry, and then drawing on little seeds, or you could just pick another color to be your outline and just draw the outline and then paint in little seeds. When I'm carving the seeds, I have to do this little bit of a rocking motion. When it's bone dry, the glaze is a little harder to carve through once it's really dry. And then just tap into the bucket. Now we'll be doing the flowers, and it's basically just a whole bunch of circles. I start with the middle and then work around each petal. And it just adds a nice little crisp line for your underglaze. And then for the leaf, I'll work starting from the middle, adding the line. And I try to feather it out so it's more thin at the ends. And then I just work my way up around. And then for the side profile of the leaf, I don't worry about the middle split. And I just outline the outside. Alright, and here's the finished product. This is a sake pitcher, and it also has a matching sake cup to go with it. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and let me know if you have any questions.